Let's get going. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Cold Water Caper talk. Um, that's about preparing for a relay swim. The talk series is really part of, or the talks are part of an offer that the CLDSA offers to its members, where we usually talk about interesting topics or people that do interesting swims. And today I will be the person in the driving seat, but I'll soon introduce you guys to a few other swimmers and skippers that have been assisting us with the information on the talk. If I can ask you, please, we're going to go through a few slides, and please to use the chat to put your questions in the chat, and we'll definitely get to the questions at the end of the presentation. And so forth. And yes, then I'll also ask some of my contributors to sort of pitch in where they think I want to add, and I'll maybe introduce them online. It's Georgina Smith, um, Georgina Sinead Cornelissen, and then Michelle Petring, and Kerry Coxon also sort of did some swims with me. So, Kerry, you're also welcome to add anything that you think we've missed. I haven't necessarily asked for your direct input, but yeah, you're very, very welcome to do that. Right. So let's just talk about how we're going to agenda the presentation is through. We're just going to talk a little bit about the CLSA, then jump right into it and talk about possible relay swim routes. Just go through some of the CLDSA swim ratification rules because I think that also explains how the swim typically would work. Talk about how the solo and the relay swims differ. There's actually quite a difference in terms of mindset and approach. Some ideas around preparation and some ideas around the swim day logistics, and then we'll open up the floor for questions around that. Right, so let's jump right into it. Um, so just about the CLDS, I'm not sure if we have people here that do not know what the CLDSA is, but we just want to use the opportunity to explain CLDSA is the Cape Long Distance Swimming Association, and we're the primary and the biggest open water swimming authority to authenticate and record or ratify long distance swims in the Western Cape. And it's been in existence since the 1960s. We're a non-profit, member-based organisation, and we really want to promote open water swimming, and we also try and act as an information source for all swimmers. Therefore, these talks have been held. Just to give you an idea, at the moment we have about 4,598 swims registered on our record base, and growing hopefully as we're going on. Just a sense around some of the members, just the membership, just for those that are not members, the membership fee is 400 Rand per year, and our swim year runs from 1 July to 30 June, and these are the benefits. It's unlimited free swim registrations. You get your public recognition of your swims in the public register with a personalized swim certificate once you've completed the swim, and we get the observer reports back. Attendance at a gala evening. This is a lovely gala evening, usually at the Royal Cape Yacht Club, as part of the awards evening at the AGM. 15% discount on selected CLSA swims, 15% discount on Michelle Weber's coaching program, free entry into these talks, 15% speeder discount voucher on sign up, 10% on Orca online merchandise. And if you are going for a Guinness World Record, then we can really assist you with that process. And one other lovely benefit is that as a member, you get access to the Robben Island thermometer readings that are get updated every 30 minutes. And yeah, so if you're not a member, we would really encourage you strongly to become a member. Right. Then I think, as I said, I'm the one in the talk, doing most of the talking today, but I've really collated this information from a few of the skippers and swimmers that's online. Georgina, I've introduced already. Jonathan, I think, has joined us as well. Jonathan, welcome on the call. Michelle Petring is on the call as well, and then Sinead Cornelissen. And as I said, please, if anybody else has some tips and stuff, put it in the chat. This is really about sharing information in the swimming community. Right. So I thought to firstly go through some swim routes because we get quite a lot of questions about which swim routes are possible for relay swims. And it's very interesting. I think the relay swims have become really popular the last 2, 3 years. And it's lovely that there's a few more routes than just the normal ones. So I think the first one is the Robben Island, Dussin Island swim that was done last year or it's earlier this year for the first time, I think, by two of the ladies in question. I think Shanae and Georgina were part of that team. It is one of our CLDSA recognized routes for a relay swim, so you'll be able to ratify it, 52 kilometers, 2.5 kilometers. Extremely cold swim in open seas, variable conditions. It's the Atlantic side, and that first part of the swim is done at night. So I think you really start. I think you guys started at 1:30. So I don't know, Shanae, Georgina, you're welcome to give, if I've missed anything, just a sense of the swim and the difficulty and the dynamic of the swim. Welcome to just add a few words here if you want to.
It's long. It's very long. No, it's a tough one, and I mean it's not it's the CLDSA's longest recorded route at the moment, and I think the thing that you perhaps don't realize or don't perhaps appreciate is because you're starting at 1 in the morning, it means you don't have any sleep, so you really got to go 24 hours without sleep, and that sort of catches up with you as you get to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a challenge for different reasons, I think, from other relays.
Yeah.
Thanks, Regina.
And I think also just I mean, I remember trying to get in some sleep before that because we had to be at the boatyard at like something ridiculous, like 12:15, and then to get to Granger Bay and all of that. And it was like going to bed at about 9, knowing I needed to wake up in an hour later just to try and get something in, which was quite a weird experience. And then 1:30 in the morning to start swimming is also another experience in its own, swimming in the dark until sunrise, because you actually don't realize how cold you get when you don't have the sun on your back, and not even a cloud, no form of light. So that was also quite a daunting experience. And I mean, I've done just on the mad swimmer side of things, a lot of us have had the experience on the mad swimmer dash and getting that little bit of darkness, but it actually doesn't last very long and you're going into sunrise. This is about 5 hours in the dark, and you just want that sunlight to come, but it does take a while to come.
Yeah, I think the lowest point of the swim is about 4 o'clock in the morning. That's pretty miserable. And you're still very near the beginning. You haven't actually done much mileage, so you're feeling quite rough by then. You're thinking you've still got a long way to go.
So it sounds like mental tenacity is a very big factor in the swim, except for
definitely.
physical part, of course. Okay, great. Thanks, ladies. Right, I'm going to go on to the next one, which I think is probably the one that's been swum the most, is the Across False Bay relay. And once again, I think it's been done in a 2-person, 3-person, and 4-person relay. And I think way back when in a 6-person relay. And a number of the people on the score, I think, so just maybe for the facts, for the guys that don't know, it's a 33-kilometer cross False Bay swim. You usually start at Miller's Point, which is on the left, and goes across to Royals. Difficulty with the swim, very strong, unpredictable currents, winds, very inconsistent water temperatures. You can find it quite cold and quite warm. And I think with the jellyfish, I think, is also sometimes a factor for some people on the warm side. And then, of course, it's the constant potential threat of the great whites. Although we hope that Star and Port and Starboard is sort of in the bay, but you never know. This is the great white territory around that. So we've had, I think, Georgina, you have done this in a 2-person relay.
Done it as a 4 and a 2. I did it as a 4 first. And we were the first people to swim from Millers to Royals. And that was a jaw. We got fantastic conditions. I thought it was amazing, and I thought it was actually quite straightforward. And then I went for the 2-man. Jeez, that's a different kettle of fish. Like a 2-person relay is hard going. So loved it, loved doing it. But doing a 2-person relay is a challenge a totally different challenge for a whole ton of different reasons. I can talk about that now, or I can talk about that later. Manen, it's up to you.
Yeah, I think maybe give us some sense just around that 2-person, because I think I'm going to cover it later, but I think it would be nice to just get your sense around the 2-person, especially on a long
So
swim like this.
the smaller the team, the smaller the number of relay swimmers, the closer you get in terms of training together and doing all your stuff together, and you become a very tight team because you're totally reliant on each other, and you have a very strong sense of not wanting to let that other person down. I think in any relay you're very concerned about letting other people down. When you're swimming in a 2-person relay, having spent all that time training together, suddenly you don't see each other, because when you're in the water, they're on the boat, and when they're in the water, vice versa, basically. So I think that also needs to be taken into consideration. But you have very little recovery time. In that 1 hour of recovery, you've got to get warm, dry, changed, fed. And I'll never forget Derek just looking at me and saying, "You've got 10 minutes left." And it just felt like I'd only just got out. And of course, every time you get back in, because you've had so little recovery time, you're going to get colder quicker. So I think it's a much it's a mental battle that I think I underestimated before I did it. And I wouldn't take it lightly. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was definitely a brilliant achievement, but my goodness, it was much harder than I thought it was going to be.
Okay. Thanks, Eva. I think, sorry, I see Eva's just joined us. Thanks, Georgina. It's quite an interesting perspective, the one about the 2-person relay, because we've done it in, I think, a 3 and a 4. Jonathan, I don't know if you want to add anything. You guys have done this in a 3-person relay, and if there's any particular dynamic around a 3-person relay that you want to share with us. I don't know if you'd be able to. Jonathan, I'm not sure if you're there. Okay. Maybe if you want to add something a bit later, think about it so long, because I am going to be covering the number of relays. And then I think as a 4-person, yeah, I think it's probably been the most done in terms of a 4-person relay. So I'm going to probably just jump on to the next one here. The other CLDSA recognized route is the double Preekstoel, the Preekstoel-Mykonos-Preekstoel route, 24-kilometer route. This swim actually has not been done in a relay before. So I'm just putting it out there. It's quite a popular route, you guys. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Langebaan, but the warmer water temperatures and relative is the word, sheltered conditions. But the wind can pick up quite heavily, but it's quite exposed to the variances in tide. So I think the timing of the swim, and as we said, the swim is usually from Kraalbaai to Mykonos and back to Kraalbaai. I think this has been done quite a lot as solos, as training swims for quite a lot of other long swims. But I think this is a relay route that is available to swim as well. Right. The next one I thought to add, because I've had quite a lot of questions about it, and Kerry and I actually did this swim. It's not a CLDSA route, but we've had quite a lot of questions about an interest in the swim. And this is a swim, I think it's one of our few long distance swims in the rest of Africa that we have available. Lake Malawi, it's a 24-kilometer swim, and it's part of the Stillwater 8 series. So this is all the freshwater lake swims. It's Stillwater 8. And as you know, Lake Malawi is, you will see the map, located between Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, 4th largest lake in the world, in volume and 2nd deepest in Africa, with a lot of interesting fish. The shortest crossing is the 24-kilometer from Makanyela to Senga, in water temperatures warm 24 to 29 degrees, and air temperatures around 26 degrees. So that's actually quite a different challenge. Potentially it does have strong currents and swell that can actually reach up to 6 meters high. As I said, it's part of the Stillwater 8 series, and the organizer is Howard Jones from Open Water Africa. I thought just to put that in case anybody's interested. So I don't know, Kerry, can I put you on the spot, Kerry? Do you want to give some sense overview of this swim and just a few pointers around the challenge of this swim? Kerry? I think I'm putting you on the spot, sorry. Yeah. So I think the challenge of the swim is the heat, actually. And it's fresh water. So fresh water has a different immediately your swim style differs. You don't have as much buoyancy, and the actual heat, the external heat, the sun, adds quite a different challenge to the swim. Also, there's a few other complexities around Balasia that you have to go for tests afterwards because it's fresh water. I think it has a bit of a different challenge around that. Okay,
And
right.
then
So yes,
can I
yes,
ask you, with this swim as well, being it's so much warmer, it's actually, did you find it harder to swim? Because a lot of the time, the higher the temperature, the harder it is to swim. And that goes
yes,
for the same if you're training in a swimming pool, and the swimming pool
yes,
temperatures might be higher that day. And your coach will
yeah,
often say to you, well, it's good for your training. You need to do it. You just got to
yeah,
push through because you might feel
yeah,
sluggish. But
yes.
mentally, I think you would feel the same. I don't know
Yeah,
if you guys felt that.
I definitely feel more sluggish in fresh and warm temperatures. So I had that. And the interesting thing for me is my body was low in the water. So different parts, my front forearms never work, but I felt it in my forearms. So you actually feel it in that way. The interesting thing about the swim as well is because this lake is so big, you will not believe the currents and you will not believe how the wind changes on the swim, literally within the hour. It changes constantly because it's such a big body of water. That was quite surprising to me. You know, you think like boundaries, but not actually. Yeah, but definitely, it's definitely from a heat. So your big thing is hydration on this swim. You must hydrate, frequently when you get into the water.
I was just about to add that, morning. Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button earlier.
Please
But
go for
yes,
it.
I
Yes.
think I was just going to say drink a lot more when you're that warm and hot, which I think, like you just mentioned, the hydration is key.
Yeah. Okay, Kiri. Anything else you want to add to the swim?
No, personally loved it, and loved actually just being in Malawi. So the chance to actually go visit another country and do a swim, I think, is a real joy. So highly recommend it from that point of view as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing, maybe a last point, is there were hippos close to our starting point. So you have a bit of wildlife. We didn't have crocodiles, but the hippos you could actually hear from the start where we overnighted the evening before. This is a real African adventure. I can tell you this is not just about the swimmers. You know, the whole experience I think is quite unique. So that's why I thought I'll just add it because I think it's wonderful too that it's sort of on our virtual doorstep. Okay, great guys. So I think this is sort of at the moment the swimmers, and I've just covered the ones you haven't covered. I think the English channel also has a relay option. I don't think we have people on this call that can really offer input to it. And I'm sure there's others as well, but I thought just to stick to the ones closer to home. Right. Then I thought just to go through some of the CLDSA ratification rules, because I think that gives you a sense of what the how the swim typically plays and how you have to do the swim. So as I said, at the moment there's three routes are the official CLDSA recognized relay routes, the Robben Island, Dustin Island swim across False Bay, and then the double preekstoel. And I think the view is that any other swim, if anybody wants to do any other swim, I'm not going to make any comments, but that you actually get pre-approved by the CLDSA before attempting it. So, and I mean, if you guys can think of other swim relay routes, then definitely do that. Typically, yeah, also swim categories would be registered for male only, female only, mixed, wetsuit, and assisted. The important point about the relay swim, though, especially with a wetsuit option, um, if one person is in a wetsuit or one person has some form of assistance, the whole team swim, the relay swim, is categorized as that. So just take that into account. If you're going to have one skin swimmer, even if you have three skin swimmer and one wetsuit, it will be a wetsuit registered swim. So just keep that in mind. Then the rule says relay teams may consist of a minimum of two and a maximum of six members, with the exception of the preaxial double preaxial route, where we say a maximum of four swimmers because of the shorter route. Very important that you discuss before the time what the swim order is, and that you would need to give your team member names in the swimming order to the official observer before the swim. And that cannot change. That has to stay the same for the duration of the swim itself. Um, right, in terms of just age, all relay team members must be age 12 and older on the day of the swim, and at least 50% of the team must be 16 years or older on the day of the swim. If the team consists of fewer than 4, all members must be over the age of 16. That's, I think, quite a strict rule that we definitely apply there, right? And how does a swim work? Each swimmer in the relay team must swim for a minimum of 1 hour, except, of course, for the last leg, when you finish the swim. On the receipt of the time signal that the time's up, the takeover must be made within 5 minutes of ending the preceding swim leg. The new swimmer has to take over from behind the preceding swimmer, and no touching allowed between the swimmer. No high five in the water around high five, you've made it. Type of thing. That's quite an important rule. This was quite an interesting rule because there was a controversial thing with the English Channel relay team, where they actually took longer than 5 minutes, and there was quite a big case, and I think the swim ultimately wasn't ratified because of that. Right, as we said, team members must give the swim order before the time and must rotate in the same order throughout the swim. Very importantly, if any of the swimmers cannot swim, cannot take over, and they, for some other reason, and we'll talk about what one of those reasons could be, cannot swim, the whole swim ends. It's a do not finish for everyone. So you cannot skip anybody. And I'll tell you where this is very relevant. We'll talk about it a bit later. Motion sickness, or when people get sick and they can't swim. The whole motion sickness of being on the boat plays a major factor around this. But very important to know, no one can stand in for a swimmer. If you can't do your swim, then the whole swim ends. I think that's sort of a group feeling responsibility that you feel around that. Right, other than the relay handover, no other swimmers are allowed in the water with the current swimmer. And of course, the only exception is that the last 500 meters of the swim, all swimmers can actually swim if the conditions allow it, can swim and end together. But the swimmers would always need to be behind the lead swimmer, the current swimmer at the time. And then I just made a comment that the same rules apply for any crossing, the start, the touch and the end and the clearing and so forth. It applies the same for the relay swim. Right. So, and I think we started to talk a little bit about this. And guys, please put your questions. I don't know if we could there's some questions in the chat. Yeah. Please put your questions in the chat around this so that we can, as they pop in, just put it in there. Right. Can everyone hear me? I just see that I've got a comment in the. Can everyone hear me? Happy? Okay, great. Okay, cool. So, how does the solo and the relay swim differ? I think most of us that do long distance swimming, it's quite a solo sport. It's you and you alone, and you look at your training, your whole mental attitude, and the way in which you do this. With a relay swim, it's a team endeavor, and I think require a different mindset and approach. Where there's a few things that differ. So, firstly, quite important that all the team members of the relay swim have the same swim objective. Now, and what I mean with that is some might be aiming for a new swim record, or some might just be interested in completing the swim as a goal. And I think it's very important that everyone's aligned around this, because I think on the day of the swim and in terms of the preparation, that would really impact that quite a lot. Very important that everyone knows this is a team endeavor, and it's quite important that you select your members that can be team players and have a bit of a give and take attitude. And I don't know if you guys, if any of the other guys want to make a comment around this, because it's quite an interest. Let me maybe finish the slide and I'll get some observation from the relay swimmers. Also important that everyone understands and are clear about what each relay swimmer's pace is and what the endurance ability is, because that really impacts the duration of the swim. I think, as we said, each person, the reason why this is a team, each person would swim their hour and then spend the rest of the time on the boat until it's their turn again. As Georgina said, in the case of the two swimmer relays, 1 hour swimming, 1 hour on the boat versus maybe 6 hour or 6 swimmer relay, which is 1 hour swim and 5 hours on the boat. So I think that's quite a different factor. It's quite a different dimension that you don't have on a solo swim. As we said, if any swimmer cannot finish their slots, it's a do not finish for the team. So the mindset about not letting down the team, I think there's sort of a bit of a mindset and quite a pressure around that. As you'll be spending quite a lot of time together, I think team cohesion is important. It's important to find a team that have a healthy cohesion. And then quite important practical factor is it's important that all the relay swimmers make the same commitment regarding the required swim preparation as well as the financial contribution. These swims require quite a financial contribution that everyone equally contributes around that. So I'm going to hand over just to a bit of a round robin with the other relay swimmers on the call. Jonathan, I don't know if you are able to add anything here, and then we can have a giving you. I just want to see if Jonathan's on the call. Jono, are you be able to add anything?
Hi, sorry.
Hi, there you go.
I couldn't unmute myself.
No worries.
There's not much I can add. I think you've covered basically everything.
Okay.
But yeah, it is awesome doing relays.
Yeah. Jonathan, maybe while we've got you, how was your experience of a 3-person relay? Because I think you're the one person on the call that's done a 3-person relay across False Bay.
It was great. We started off very cold, but yeah, the 3-person actually worked out very nicely because you do get time to recover on the boat. Like Georgina said, obviously a 2-person will be a lot more demanding and obviously a lot more solo in respect of mental attitude. There's quite a bit of camaraderie on the boat in between, and everyone gets in behind the team members and eggs them on. So from that point of view, I'm certain that a 3-person mentally is a lot easier than a 2-person.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the only one I've done is a 3, and it was great.
Okay, great, Jono. Thank you. Eva, I see you also on the call. Would you like to add a comment or two? I think you've been part of a few of the relays as well, with I think Shanae and Georgina. I'm not sure if Eva's going to be able to. So I'm going to, Shanae, anything from your side you want to add? You're on mute. There you go.
I think you've covered it. The only thing is pretty much it is as you say, you have to take everyone's like their time that they're having into consideration, whether they need that encouragement. If they are really battling, it's just to really, like as you say, be there for them and maybe try and somehow communicate you've only got like 5 minutes left or something, because they might just need some form of like information, and you might need to have a little board with you to write there like 5 minutes left, that they can actually see it from the side of the boat, because sometimes you do go through these like dips and then you think, oh, I don't know if I can finish this, but then you're in it for the whole team. So you do just keep pushing through and choosing the right members to actually partner with as a team. I think if you know who you swim well with, and you learn actually about each other when you are as a group of 4 in my instance. And I also, like, I got to know swimmers a whole lot better than what I knew them beforehand, and that for me was another friendship that had formed that I never even thought was, like, it probably would have been possible down the line, but it was a closer network that we were actually involved in, and learning a little bit more and deeper about each other. That was something special in itself. So for me, it's you can choose your friends to go and do it with. It doesn't really matter. I mean, there's a lot of people on this call that I'm sure would love to do a relay together, and just choose your 4 people and in a way, it's just go for it. Just go and have fun and train and make sure that you're all in sync, and maybe with your training, and either if you want to do it for a cause, then go do it for a cause. Otherwise, just do it for yourself and try something new if you haven't done it before.
Okay, thanks, Shanae. Georgina?
Yeah, I think it's a good summary, and then I think there's a couple of things actually to just take into consideration. So I think it's really important to be very open and honest about your own weaknesses and where you think you might struggle. When I did the 2-person with Kirsty, I was a better cold water swimmer, but she's better in the warmer water. So you just know that each of you is going to struggle depending on what the conditions are on the day for different reasons. We had this pact that if it was more than 17 when we started, she'd start, and if it was less than 17, I'd start, because then the colder, the person who likes the colder water does the extra leg. It was 17.1 degrees, so she started. But it's really important to kind of have those kind of agreements beforehand, so that you kind of work that through. And then the other thing is, every other swim you do, you're counting down the Ks. You're counting, it's a 12K swim. I've got 2.5K left, whatever. This, you're counting down time. But if you count down time, it takes forever. It's a mindset thing. You've got to get very strong in your head when you have to get in and out, in and out, in and out. So actually, the best way I've found, and I've done a few relays, the best way to kind of get through your hour is to have a bet with yourself about how many times your watch is going to buzz 500 meters in that hour. Because if you have a Garmin watch and it buzzes every 500 meters, now you're against the clock and you're trying to get the distance in. And that has a different mindset, as opposed to, okay, I've done 10 minutes. Okay, I've done 20 minutes. I've done so it's about playing games with yourself and your head to try and get yourself through that hour without thinking of it as an hour. Think of it as, how many 500 meters can I do in this hour? So I think for me, they're the kind of two things that I would say: be very open and honest and vulnerable. And then don't do it in time, do it in like how much distance can you get. And I see someone's put in the chat, like, do you change every rotation? Yes. In fact, Jonathan was my pilot for the Dasson Island swim with Eva. Eva and I were on the boat together. And you change. And I was so cold coming out of that. My hands didn't work to undress myself. So I had to be undressed by Eva every time, like a toddler, and then dressed again. So yes, you have to, you get close and personal with your fellow swim mates. And that's just how it was. Jonathan was a perfect gentleman and looked away at that time. The whales got a good view though.
Wonderful. Thank you. Michelle, do you want to add anything? Michelle was one of our relay. She's a skipper, but she was also part of our relay team. You want to add anything?
Thanks. Thanks, Manine. I think one of the big differences between the solo swim and the relay swim is that you're not feeding in the water, and that you need to properly load up while you're on the boat. So you've got to give yourself a chance to recover from your swim, get dry, get dressed, and then fuel up for your next hour. And it's important that you take on the right nutrition there. With your Malawi swim, you're going to need more electrolytes there because it's fresh water. With the saltwater swims, less sodium. But I mean, I took sandwiches. I plowed through sandwiches in my hour on the boat. And then one of the other things, I'm not sure where this is going to fit into this, is you're on the boat for a long time and you've got to relieve yourself. So it's one of those things that you've got to get comfortable with somebody watching you while you're relieving yourself, because somebody's going to have eyes on you while you're in the water, and that's really the only place to do it. So give yourself 30 seconds before you start your session, just to get comfortable with the water and relieve yourself, whatever that entails, and then get into your swim. Because once the changeover happens, you don't have time to hang in the water and release what needs to be released. You need to get on the boat, because the boat's got to carry on supporting the swimmer. So that's one of the things we don't generally like talking about, but it's an important part of the swim, especially on a relay swim, when you're spending so much time on the boat. And then the other one is, the closer the land looks, the longer the swim still is. It's especially on the false space swim. That last 10Ks on the false space swim, when the wind turns and the current turns, that's very tough, and you really need to put your head down and go on that last set. And that was a mind shift for me. I was in my English Channel crossing training when we did our relay swim, and that was a game changer for me. That my last hour in the water. And I'm going to address, I see the question came through about seasickness. You need to train with some sort of seasickness tablets. I use a Valoid-based, non-drowsy. You're going to be on the boat for a long time. On a false bay crossing particularly, the best days for a false bay crossing is a rough day for the boat. It's the current and the wind is blowing and you're rock and rolling, so your chances of getting seasick on the boat is high. So you do need to prepare for that, because if you get sick on the boat, it could tank your swim. So train with some sort of anti-nausea medication, whether it's over the counter, or speak to your doctor and get something prescribed that's going to work for you. So yeah, that, and make sure you've got warm clothes when you get back on the boat. It's generally cold on the boat. It doesn't matter how hot the day is. There's always a cool breeze on the water. It's always cold on the boat. So make sure you've got enough sunblock for the boat more than for the swim. Hats, jackets, dry costumes. Make sure you've got dry costumes that you can change into. There's nothing worse than sitting in a wet costume for 2 or 3 hours waiting for your next swim. You're just not going to get warm.
Yeah, I've got a little pack list that I'll share on the slide with the guys. I think it covers okay.
Those I've chatted to the skippers, and those are the things they've said we must bring across today.
Great.
Cool. Thanks, Michelle. The one thing I also just want to add was just on that motion sickness. Something also that's really small, besides the medication, is if you take a lollipop with you, and happened, we at one stage I was on the boat and the fumes from the boat just came behind me and I felt so sick. And Catherine knew I gave everyone lollipops, and I said, if this happens, just take a lollipop, suck on it, and look to the horizon. And you're taught that often when it comes to diving. And by sucking on that lollipop, it actually it does something to your mind, and it makes you not even think about it. And that nausea feeling and that dizziness, it tends to just go away. So that's just also another trick that really works well, is taking a lollipop for that nausea, and when that boat is not great, all those fumes. And just on the one question of about wearing a wetsuit and changing a costume, I see. So with every swim, you get out of your wet costume and you put a dry one on immediately, and then you make sure that you are dressed warm. So in your case of the question of a wetsuit, I would say yes, get out of the wetsuit, depending how long your changeover is, but I would presume it would be possibly a 4-person in that case, where you could take your wetsuit off, take that wet costume off, put a dry cozy on and stay warm, and put your wetsuit on closer to the time when you know your changeover is going to take place. And you're going to have to practice this as well before you even do the relay, so that you get a feel for it. Where you do a swim as a team or with a pair, and you wait an hour and you go and do something else on the beach, get unchanged, go and put your dry cozy on, and go put your wetsuit back on and go out for another hour. So you definitely need to practice that before doing the swim itself.
Okay.
And then can I just add?
Yes,
can I just
sure.
add to
Sure.
don't forget shoes. You know, if you think you're on a boat, you think you can get away with slops. And you know, I've made that mistake. I won't ever make it again. Just because you're on a boat, you need shoes and socks and boots, and you just got to get your feet warm. If your feet are cold, you're not going to warm up.
Yeah.
Good tip. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. I don't know. I'm going to probably move on, and maybe at the end, if we've got some other additional things. So maybe just into this relay preparation. So as we said, selecting your relay swim route and your relay team. As we said, we spoke quite extensively about the relay team, so I'm not going to go further around that. I think then, of course, discuss when ideally do you guys want to do the swim. As I said, aligning member availability and where you want to aim for, and the time that you possibly need to train. I think sort of agree that with your team members. And then I think very important to book your relay swim slot with your skipper, pilot, organizer very early. I don't know, Michelle, you can probably give a view around this, but the slots get filled up quite quickly. And sometimes I think we booked a year in advance, almost a year in advance, our swim slot. and sort of said we're aiming for that particular week. As I said, it's becoming a increasingly more popular route around this. Yeah, selecting, I think very important that you select your skipper or the organization you swim with that has experience of the route, experience of relay teams, and have the necessary boat that can support relay swims. I think, sometimes there's one boat, sometimes two, but I think that's something that you'll discuss with the skipper. As we said, book your swim window with your skipper, and then also just on a very high level, understand how swim logistics will work, especially if you haven't done a relay swim before. In terms of what's the number of boats that would sort of be involved, how would you guys be split? I think the one thing that was quite important for me, and I think, Kerry, you can pipe in here, is I really struggled to get out of the water without a ladder. Just my mechanics, my anatomy doesn't allow me to easily get out of the water. And if you've swam quite hard for an hour, think about how are you going to get out of the water. And I think Michelle made reference to the ablutions. How do you think you would do that around that? I mean, we all have our own ways of doing that, but I think really to consider that as well. So, then Michelle, do you want to add anything here around the skipper pilot sort of type of angle on this one?
Yeah. Remember that the boat it's not your lounge. You don't have couches and sofas and stuff. The space is very limited, so you need to be cognizant of that when you pack for the day. So you probably, if you've got a four-man relay on one boat, you're going to have at least 6 people on the boat, because you're going to have your relay plus your skipper and crew. So you're going to have to be very careful about how you pack. Make sure you've got stuff that you can get warm in quickly, and that you've got something warm to wear for the ride back after the swim, particularly False Bay. False Bay, you generally swimming from Millers to Royals, and then there's still a boat ride, whether it's back all the way back to Millers or whether the exit is at Gordons Bay. There's still at least a minimum of a 40-minute boat ride up to a 2-hour boat ride, depending on conditions. So you need to work that into your planning as well. There was something I thought of as I was looking. Yeah, if you're planning a swim, a relay, get your date in. Honestly, you're not going to book a relay for this year on False Bay, and at the moment the conditions, we're still waiting for conditions to turn. You're probably only looking at next year, maybe. But if you're wanting to book, you need to get hold of your skipper organization as soon as possible and just get a slot in, whether it's 2025, 2026, and sometimes it's a 2-year window, much like English Channel or Catalina. There are, once slots open, they get taken very quickly. So that's something to definitely look at. And then the one thing that we haven't yet mentioned is if you're able to fit in a practice swim, the Preekstoel double is the ideal training ground for a practice relay. It's going to give you all the different conditions that you're going to get, for example, on a False Bay. And it also gives you the opportunity to test how you're changing, how your team works in terms of order of swimmers, whether your nutrition works, how easy or difficult it is to get on the boat. But the boats have ladders, but it's not always easy. If the water's fairly rough, it's still going to be difficult to get on the boat. And there's no dignified way of getting onto a boat. It's just it is what it is. You grab the ladder, somebody will try and help you, but your arms are not working, and it's you just got to bite down on your teeth, gird your loins, and climb up onto the boat. What else is there that I can add on this?
Okay. I'm gonna
that's about all I can think of right now.
Okay, great. I'm going to pop into just the preparation, because I think we're sort of verging into that. So I think maybe in terms of the relay preparation, we had a tip here, learn from the other relay swimmers that's done the route before. I mean, we try to share as much as we can on the score with you guys about the particular routes, but have a look. You'll see on the CLDSA swim record side, you'll see the list of people that's done all the relative relay swims. So talk to them. I mean, as I said, there's the swim records on the Lake Malawi one. You guys are welcome to ask Kerry or myself or even Howard James about just some dynamics around that. I think just training consideration, as we said, each swimmer to train for swimming multiple swim legs, and it's not just one continuous swim. So I think that's stamina, endurance, about getting in, waiting a few hours, getting back in, I think, for that. Train for spending time on the boat. I think we've chatted about the motion sickness. I think it's important that you understand what your body does with motion sickness. And I'll be honest, what we did is I don't normally get motion sickness, but I actually took motion sickness tablets, and I'm very glad I did because I think just this one is quite a biggie around that. Also plan for how you'll recover after your swim leg. After you've done your swim leg, how you're going to manage after drop and how you're going to do nutrition on the boat. I think usually what Shanae and I think Michelle's made the reference, and Georgina as well, you usually get out, the first thing is to take your wet stuff off, get warm into your dry stuff. Take your nutrition in actually as soon as possible because you want your body to process that before you swim. You don't want to have sort of full stuff around that. Understand how that pattern would work. And then I like also this concept of a pre-swim test. As much as you can test the variables before the time, the easier. So, as you said, you do some individual open water swims to test your own fitness, but possibly do that simulated relay swim. We did it also on the double pre-extra. We actually didn't do it we did it in 30-minute slots because we wanted to get a feel around that. But I think it was really quite a confidence booster for the team to understand how you work together as a team as well. So if you have an option to do that, you can then test your medication, whether it's motion sickness, cramping, antihistamine, whatever your particular conditions are, test your swim gear, test your nutrition on the board. So I think that's really appropriate around that.
Well, and Monine, sorry,
Yes,
just to
yes,
mention there,
Terry.
I think the
Yes.
one thing I was going to say was I wasn't sure how I was going to cope getting in and out of the water because I often, when I start swimming, I like to just continue swimming. So, mentally, the thought of stopping, I actually thought, oh God, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy this. But actually, that test we did proved that actually I love doing it and found it very easy if you like to do. So I think it's well worth having that test so that you understand, like you say, mentally how you're going to cope with the start, stop, because it is very different to a continuous swim.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary. And I think there's a question while we're on it, would Knysna Lagoon offer approximately similar conditions to the pre-extra Mykonos for the South Cape swimmers to train for longer swims? I think the temperature is probably roughly the same, right? Kerry, you and I also swim in Knysna Lagoon quite a lot.
Yeah, I think so. It's just the distance isn't as long. So I think you might have to go both ways, but yes. And then the
So
tide assist might be a bit more.
Yeah, so you'd have to time the tide quite well because the tidal assist, I think, is even more impactful in Knysna because it's a shallower lagoon. Right, Yuri, I hope we answered that question for you. Okay, right, then I think preparation for the actual swim day, once you've got the swim day finalized, just logistically make sure that you guys are all members and you've submitted your swim application. So when we get the observer reports, we can actually create that swim. Agree the final relay swim order with your team if it changes between when you've committed it. Confirm the swim logistics with the pilot. Where do you meet? We spoke about the space for the bags and the swim orders and those things. Arrange also who will keep your supporters updated during your swim. It's a practical thing. A lot of people create, WhatsApp groups. Whether you guys want to do it yourself or you want somebody else to do that. And start with your pre-swim nutrition and medication, whatever that is for you. I don't know if it's magnesium, C6 tablets, electrolytes, based on your individual needs. And very important if you can get enough sleep. I think, the sleep thing on any long swim is a good factor. And then just on the swim day itself, I think we've made reference to some of it. This was a very handy little packing list for me on both of the swims. I didn't realize that there were so many things that you needed to take into account. But suggested pack list is dry swimming costumes. I typically have one for each of the swim legs, a towel to dry off, spare goggles and swim cap, a change robe or some other way in which you can change your, dress in and out on the boat. The warm clothes is critical. Warm jacket, tracksuit pants, socks, beanie. I heard Georgina said even boots or shoes, but to keep your feet warm, especially for managing that after drop and staying and the cold that's usually on the boat. So there's a spelling mistake. So sleeping bag, I think, Shanae, you suggested that would also sometimes helps for the after drop to get into a sleeping bag. Then on the boat, because you spend a lot of time with it's cold or warm, sun protection. Hat, sunscreen, sunglasses, long sleeve rash vest, long sleeve shirt or a rash vest. And then for that boat ride back, Michelle made a reference, especially on false, but I got sopping wet on my way back. I didn't have enough dry stuff, so warm, windproof and rainproof clothes for the road back, if it's a long ride back. There was a suggestion around black bag for your bag, so your stuff can stay warm on the dry on the boat, or even a dry bag. And then, of course, whatever medication you're going to need, particularly for and stuff, motion sickness, cramping, stuff for allergic reaction, for chafing. So Vaseline we put on. Wet wipes is sometimes quite nice, once you've done with stuff, wet wipes. And then, of course, all your on-boat nutrition, your particular food and drinks, and enough water around that. Okay.
Manini,
So
can
I don't know
I
if
just
there's
add
anything
there?
else? Yes, sure, go
Yeah,
for it.
just on that first point for dry swimming costumes, one for each leg. So obviously depending on how big your relay team is, if it's 3 or 2 or 4, not everyone might have a wide variety of costumes to choose from. So what we did was, as soon as we got out of our wet cozies, we had a dry one to put on, but then we'd put our wet cozy on the boat. So it got dry from the wind and the sun, so that at least we had that one that could be possibly a 3rd or a 4th leg costume by the time we got there. So that was just something that we did on the boats, because not everyone might have 4 costumes in hand.
No, I'm with you. Right. Thank you. Anything else anybody would like to add to sort of the packing list? Happy? Jana, anything from your side? Eva, you're also welcome to add if you want to.
If I could just add from a skipper's perspective,
yes. Sure.
I know on solo swims, often people want to have a family member or a friend on the boat. That's just not going to be possible on a relay. There are too many people. So I know the question hasn't come up, but it's your skipper's not likely to agree to that unless they are recognised crew member of the organisation that you're swimming with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Michelle. Any other comments? Jana, do you want to add anything? Okay. Right. Okay. And yeah, so I think that was probably just sort of high-level tips. I don't know, from the swimmers around the room, have I missed anything? And very, very happy that if you guys want to ask some questions, happy to put it in chat, or even put up your hand if you want me to, so we can address anything that we haven't answered yet around that.
I'm just going to add to the pack list also just a head torch, because often when we're in the dark, you're starting on the dark and you're trying to find your things. You've got your bag of goodies and your this and that, but your head torch, you need that to try and find your things. And also like a spare battery pack is also something to take with you, because you're finding you could be on your phone and you're updating the group and this and that, and your phone dies, or you need it for after the swim to say, I've arrived safely, I'm on my way back. Just a spare battery pack is also something just to add to the list.
Okay. Great, thanks. That's a good point. I haven't swum in the dark yet. You see, you guys have done the long swim. Okay, great. Yeah, Georgina, anything you'd like to add?
No, just I think on that battery pack, I think the other thing is put your phone on airplane mode when you're not on it. Otherwise, it chews a whole ton of battery and just trying to find a signal. So it does die very, very quickly on a boat if it can't find signal. So airplane mode if you're not using it. And I think Shanae is absolutely right. Battery pack is definitely needed.
Just one more thing
Yes,
Just
Rich?
following on Shanae's comment about the head torch. If you're swimming at night, you also need swim lights. So make sure you've got swim lights on that packing list.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Jonathan, anything from your side?
No, I think we've covered most of the points.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Kerry, anything from your side?
It's a lot of fun. I loved it. I highly recommend it. Lots of time to chit chat, lots of time to have fun, lots of time to swim. It's great.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely so. Great. Okay, great. So let me just have a look at this. So thank you. I think that's probably it
You have a
from the
question there?
presentation. Yeah, let me answer the question. Let's go to the question quickly. Alison, average costs. I'm going to start with yours. I think it very much is dependent on your skipper and who you swim with. I think a big part of the cost is the pilot support cost. I'm not going to be able to quote you on costs. I think it depends on who you use. So that's something that I would definitely find out from whoever you want to use, the organizer or the skipper itself. So the pilot cost is that any swims, of course, that you would do before the time, the registration is arbitrary. If you want to do a swim away, like the Lake Malawi swim, at quite substantial travel costed because we had to get there and stay there. But I think that's usually the stuff I think you'll try and find out from the organizer or from the skipper before the time. Yeah, I'm a bit reluctant to quote on other people's behalves about what they charge for it. So I would suggest that you chat to the available organizers and skippers about that. Then I think there was a question, Yuri, just about will you get out of the water into the boat if the seals are following even without engaging swimmers? Refer to the rabies situation. And Michelle said no, if the seals are behaving, no. So I think I think there's been quite a lot of interest around the rabies situation. I think a lot of the skippers, I would assume, is updated with that situation and have their protocols in place. But maybe check that with your pilots. Kerry?
Maybe also recommend getting rabies jabs because I mean that's quite a simple thing to do and have. And if you're swimming in open water with the situation at the moment, highly recommended.
Yeah. There's various views around that, Kerry, around the authorities. But anyway, yeah. So maybe just explore that situation with your relevant skipper around that. Okay. So let me just check all the questions in the chat. I just want to see if they've been answered. Right. Right. Super. Okay, we spoke about the wetsuit changing around that and how do you eat. I hope we've got, Karen, I hope we've answered that question of yours around the changing costume and the eating when you get back into the boat. I think we've addressed that.
I
The
think there's
coping
just
of
another one question. Sorry,
Sure.
Michelle B said there, which is harder, the waiting or the swimming, and do muscles start seizing up closer to the end? We didn't touch on that.
Yeah. So does anybody want to answer that? I don't know any. I didn't have that experience personally, but I don't know any of the other swimmers. Did you guys experience that happening?
As a skipper, I have experienced swimmers where they did cramp on the boat after a swim. But I think it's going to depend on your fitness level on the day. If you're prepared properly and you understand that you're swimming a solid hour, you're not stopping to chat, you're not stopping to feed. It's from when you start to your stop. It's a 60-minute swim, and then if you're hydrating and taking in correct nutrition while you're on the boat and in the days in the run up to the swim, then your muscles shouldn't seize. Get your head around being on the boat for a long time. As a 4-person relay, and that appears to be the most common grouping at the moment, you're going to be on the boat for 3 hours at a time between your swims. So figure out what you're going to do with those 3 hours. And let me tell you, those 3 hours actually go very quickly. So from when you get on the boat and you change and you recover, that's 45 minutes. You have something to eat. you rest and relax. That's another 45 minutes. And then you start preparing your head for your next session. So that 3 hours goes very quickly. And the last 5 minutes of each hour session is the longest 5 minutes you'll experience, because as soon as you start seeing swimmers getting ready, you're going, I'm about to get on the boat, and then you get some eager swimmers that get ready 15 minutes before the time, and then you've got some that start stretching 20 minutes before the time, so you think, I'm about to get out, and no, it's still another 20 minutes. So don't get excited when you see people start preparing on the boat. It doesn't mean they're about to jump in. Your skipper will generally give you a 5-minute warning, and then that 5 minute is long.
And Michelle, I think you can add on how big the boat is, because that was another question. And then also Yuri said they're sitting on the side of the pontoon or the rubber duck. Yes, we do. As soon as we know we're about to go in, we then basically get ready. You sit on the edge of the boat or the pontoon, and then you jump in. Go behind the swimmer, let them finish, and you go.
Your skipper will give you will give the swimmer in the water a 5-minute countdown. On the boat, you're getting a 2-minute countdown, a 1-minute countdown, a 30-second countdown, and then a 15-second countdown. So you on the boat, you know exactly when you're going to get into the water. In the water, you're not entirely sure when you're going to get out of the water. But yes, from about a minute from entry, you'll probably be sitting on the pontoon with getting your watch ready, getting your goggles on, and then the swimmer in the water will start realizing it's time to start dialing back and preparing to get onto the boat. Boat size will depend on the skipper organization that you're swimming with. It may also, the route that you're swimming might also determine the size of the boat or the configuration of the boat. For example, the Dussin route, you're more likely to have 2 boats out in support of a 4- or 6-person relay, just because of the amount of time that you're on the boat. Gives you a little more space to recover and prepare. But the size of the boat will definitely depend on your skipper or organization that you swim with.
I think to check that before the time. So that's all the stuff that you need to discuss with them before time. Okay, great, guys. I think we've covered all the questions. And I think we've run out of time. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. As we said, we've played out the relay team spirit on this call as well by getting everyone's input into it. Thank you very much. I trust it was really useful information. As I said, we will record. This recording will be on the CLDSA YouTube page. If you want to go and refer back to some of the information on the particular call, you're really welcome to. And as always, very welcome to ask anybody in the CLDSA if we can assist you with any information around this. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much to Georgina, Shanae, Michelle, Jonathan, Kerry, just for your input as well. This is really a team effort. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. Goodbye.
Thanks, Manine.
Bye-bye.